Hi, my name is Annabel Anderson, and I will be presenting over West Nile virus. The taxonomy. The kingdom is the Orthorhyn aviary, the phylum the Chytranoviricata, class Flascivivaretus, order Amarylloviralis, family the Flaviviridae, and the genus the Flavivirus, and then the species ultimately is West Nile virus. So this group of viruses are a positive single-strain RNA virus that have arthropod vectors, primarily in this case mosquitoes. West Nile is an enveloped and is an isohedral shaped virus. It has non-structural proteins that fight antiviral responses of the body, such as interferons. The symptoms. A large percentage of patients are actually asymptomatic, 80% to be exact. And the virus is able to remain dormant in the body for long periods of time. And so 20% of the patients end up having West Nile fever, which essentially just showcases common cold symptoms. These symptoms are fever, headaches, body aches, and fatigue. The incubation period is 2 to 6 days, and then the symptoms can stay in the body for up to 14 days, but the fatigue can stay around for a month or longer. Then about 1% to about 5% end up getting the West Nile disease, which is a neuroinvasive disorder, and then less than 1% develop this neurological disorder, which can showcase as encephalitis or meningitis. The symptoms associated with West Nile disease is headache, high fever, stiffness, coma, disorientation, tremors, seizures, and paralysis. And then these can last for months or be permanent. And then it can occur in people of any age. However, people over the age of 50 and some immunocompromised people are at higher risk for getting severely ill once affected with West Nile virus. Diagnosis. West Nile virus can be diagnosed by a number of different tests. IgG antibody seroconversion, or significant increase in antibody titers, in 2 serial specimens collected at 1-week interval by enzyme-linked immunosuppressant assay. IgM antibody capture enzyme-linked immunosuppressant assay, neutralization assays, or viral detection by reverse transcription polymerase change, or RT-PCR assay, and viral isolation by cell culture. IgM can be detected in nearly all cerebral spinal fluid and can be serum specimens received from West Nile virus infected patients at the time of their clinical presentation. Then serum IgM antibody may persist for more than a year. Transmission. So transmission is an animal vector, which mosquitoes are the primary source of the infection. Then West Nile virus is maintained in nature in a mosquito-bird-mosquito transmission cycle. Mosquitoes of the genus Culex are generally considered the principal vectors of West Nile virus. So how it works. The mosquitoes feed off the infected bird and receive the virus. The virus circulates in mosquito's body for 2 to 3 days, which ends up putting it into the salivary glands. And then later, when it feeds off a human, the virus is transmitted once the mosquito bites the human. And so the virus is actually able to infect both horses and humans, and so which makes it a zoonotic arbovirus. The mosquitoes are the vectors, and the bird is an amplifier host. Birds have high levels of the virus, so the virus can be transmitted from them. But horses and humans are known as what do we call it, a dead-end host, which means there are low levels of virus in their body, which just means that virus cannot be transmitted from them. Also, it cannot be spread through casual interactions by humans and animals. Alright, so prevention and treatments. So there's no vaccine, but there is a vaccine for horses but not humans. And so the CDC gives a list of recommendations to actually avoid West Nile. And so the recommendations include bug spray, mosquito nets, and to wear long sleeves when you're outside. And so there is some research that are being done to reduce the mosquito population. And so the effective prevention of human West Nile virus infection depends on the development of a comprehensive integrated mosquito surveillance and control programs in the area where the virus occurs, which would allow them to reduce the population. And then studies should identify local mosquito species that play a role in West Nile virus, including those that might serve as a bridge from humans to birds. And so all of this would be done to limit and reduce and just understand the mosquito population in each area, so you know which areas have a higher chance of transmitting or receiving the virus. And then for treatments for more serious cases, once in the hospital, there is no treatment, but the patient is put on pain medication, intravenous fluids, and respiratory support to prevent another infection. And then healthcare workers caring for patients with suspected or confirmed West Nile infection or handling specimens from them should implement standard infection control precautions. Even though it's hard to transmit West Nile from human to human, it's still, if gotten a cut, it could infect the person handling. And so actually to date, there's no human to human transmission of West Nile through casual contact that has been documented, and no transmission of West Nile to healthcare workers have reported with standard infection control precautions that have been put in place. So be safe when handling West Nile. And so here's a little infographic I found. And so this top one right here is to avoid infected areas. So if you notice the high chance of receiving from the area, avoid it. The clear living spaces, standing water. Standing water attracts mosquitoes. And then you use insect repellent to keep them anywhere near your body, just to keep them away from you. Okay, so outbreaks. So the West Nile virus was first isolated in a woman in the West Nile district of Uganda in 1937. It was then when it was identified in birds in the Nile Delta region in 1953. And then for 1997 to be in this outbreak, West Nile was not considered pathogenic for birds. But at the time in Israel, a more virulent strain caused the death of a different bird species presenting signs of encephalitis and paralysis. And so that's when this big outbreak happened. Human infections attributable to West Nile virus have been reported in actually many countries for over 50 years at this point. And so in 1991, a West Nile the West Nile virus was circulating in Israel and Tanzania, was imported in New York, producing a large and dramatic outbreak that spread throughout the continental U.S. And then in the following years, this is when it was highlighted that the outbreak, it highlighted the importance of establishment of vector-borne pathogens outside their current habitats and how they represent a serious danger to the world. And then the largest outbreak occur in Greece, Israel, Romania, Russia, and the U.S. The outbreak sites are on major bird migratory routes. And so in its original reigns, West Nile was very prevalent throughout Africa, parts of Europe, Middle East, West Asia, and Australia. And since its introduction into the U.S. in 1990, this virus has now spread and now is widely established from Canada to Venezuela. And so lastly, I have listed my sources, and just the World Health Organization, Mayo Clinic, and the CDC. All right. Thank you for watching.